testing. 1, 2. Awesome.
Testing. Woo! Yeah. All right.
All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to get started here in just a minute once we get all the tech worked out. We appreciate your patience. Oh, of course.
Absolutely. Come on in. We got right now. There we go. All right. I didn't know if you were
Thank you very much, Dawn.
And also, are we giving folks another moment?
I think so. Yeah, and we've got Kirsten in the background. Are we live on Zoom? Awesome. All right, good morning, everybody. I know that our break was a little bit less than expected, and so I'm sure we'll have some others trickle in. But we can go ahead and do some introductions to go ahead and get started. So welcome if you're just joining us. We're super glad that you're with us. Our session is going to be titled Harmonizing Learning, a jazzed up journey through Maslow and Bloom. We're going to introduce ourselves on the next slide. But for right now, I want you to know that we're the cool cats from Lewis and Clark Community College. So we're super glad that you're joining us here this morning.
It's a very important distinction, let's be real.
For sure.
Oh, wonderful. They're shutting the doors for us, so we'll give that just a moment to get things going and shut, and wonderful. Excellent. So what we're going to do to bring attention to everybody, this is a trick that you all can use in your classrooms. It's something that we use in our classroom often, especially as we have a blended classroom. So we have some students who join us online, some who join us in person. And this is a really good way to gauge our online and our in-person attendance at the same time. So if you are in person, what I want you to do is I want you to pretend to play your favorite instrument. And if you cannot decide on what your favorite instrument is, that's okay. Pick one of your favorites. And I want you to pretend to play it as we get ready to go into our session. Also, if you are one of our online attendees, if you can find an emoji button amongst your emojis on your text online, send us one of the musical emojis that you can find in the chat. This will be a quick sign to us that you're able to see these slides, you're able to hear our voices, and you're ready to get started with the session together. So I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to play my guitar. With our in-person people, go ahead and pretend to play your favorite instrument. And also, if you're moderating the internet over there, if you could let us know if we're getting some musical emojis coming through the online attendees.
Woo. Awesome sauce.
Good deal.
So,
wonderful. Thank you, guys.
While you're playing to the tune, I want you to be able to meet our band. We call ourselves the Blazer Blues. As Lewis and Clark employees, we are trailblazers, so hence the name Blazer Blues. We're going to go around and introduce our team here, and it's ladies first. So what is your name, Kathy?
My name is Kathy Moody. And my favorite instrument was the drums. I've been 7 years in the program.
I'm Kelly Meyer. I've been 5+ years in adult education teaching ABE, ASE classes. I do enjoy guitar. I love a good guitar solo. It gets me so excited and gets my heart pumping.
I'm Julie McAfoose. I've been in... Is this on? Yes. Is this thing on?
It sounds so
okay.
quiet.
Okay, I'm Julie McAfoose. I've been here 22 years. I've played the violin forever, but I'm really interested in the clarinet right now.
And my name's William. I've been an adult ed for 5 years as well. And Julie's favorite instrument is the violin, and she let me say the violin instead of her, and that should give you a reflection of her personhood and how gracious she is. So I've already been able to tell some of your favorite instruments by the ones that you've been playing, showing us that you're ready and you can see the slides. So we are going to go on with our show today. And what do we mean by that? Well, we actually have a set list. We have really jazzed it up here. And so we're going to have 4 parts to our session this morning. And so hopefully we can get through all of it in just about the hour that we have. You can see on the slide that we are going to call on some of the classic pedagogical paradigms And you'll see what we mean in just a minute. We have a lot of graphic organizers, a lot of visuals for you in this set list number 1. We're going to then try to make a melody in our classroom. We're going to try to take those classics, make a melody with it, and then we're going to synchronize it in step number 3. We call it synchronizing the symphony. And then finally, our favorite part is we're going to jazz it up. We're going to jazz up the journey of learning together, and you'll see exactly what that means. We're going to do a collaborative activity together in the second half of our session that hopefully will give you some very concrete skills, ideas, resources to be able to take back to your programs to make them more successful. So hopefully you're excited. We're ready to rock and roll. And we are going to start off with numero uno here of our set list, which is calling on the classics. Take it away, Miss Kathy.
All right. I'm going to get in the front of the room here so you can see me. We're going to call on some classical models of learning and human behavior. And the first one is Maslow's hierarchy, of needs. And this is where, and we're just going to kind of familiarize you guys with these. This is the hierarchy of needs where as you progress through these, you can handle more coming your way. So the bottom one is physiological needs. That's air, water, food, shelter, those basic needs that we all have as human beings. And then safety is health, security, employment and resources. And I'm reading those because for those of you in the room, it's kind of tiny. The next one's belonging, family, friends, intimacy, sense of connection. And then we have esteem, respect, recognition, self-esteem, and then that self-actualization, that desire to become who you can be. And the whole premise of this is if any one of these lower ones are lacking, it makes it harder to reach the next one. So if someone doesn't know where they're going to sleep tonight, for us as instructors, that means they're really not with us in the room because they're more concerned about those physiological needs and stuff. If they don't have a sense of belonging, they can't make those connections to boost themselves up higher and higher. So that is Maslow's. Who's next?
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right.
So connecting Maslow, we also want to call on a second classic, which is Bloom's taxonomy. You're probably familiar with it, but just as a quick summary of it, as teachers, we want our learners, we want our classrooms to be climbing this pyramid. We shouldn't be satisfied when our learners are just doing the bottom rungs of this pyramid, for example, like remembering. Welcome. Remembering might be basic recall, which is a critical component. You need to be able to remember, you need to be able to recall, but like I said, we want our learners to start applying critical thinking skills in the classroom, practicing those skills so that they can really start using them in their career, in their college, in their whatever they are getting ready to apply those skills for. So as teachers, we are constantly trying to reflect on how do we climb this pyramid. For instance, like for analyzing, something that I really try to do as a teacher, something that we try to do when we teach reading, for instance, is for students to apply critical reading skills with things like inferring information from the text, something that the author hasn't explicitly said in the text. But if you take clues and you apply critical thinking skills, you can start saying, oh, well, actually, the author's trying to convey this, even though it wasn't written explicitly in the text. That's an example of climbing this pyramid, not just recalling basic information in a text that we're reading, but also starting to apply information, analyze it. That way, we can climb the pyramid and get to positions like evaluating, creating new ideas from the ideas that have been presented, like in a text, for instance. So you're probably already familiar with Bloom, but this is one of the critical classics that as teachers, we want to put together when we're making this melody, when we are synchronizing the learning going on in our classroom. And that brings us to our next classic, which is the rhetorical triangle.
Okay. I teach writing, so this is
the one I chose. 2,000 years ago, Aristotle wrote about rhetoric, which is basically using language in all the available means of persuasion. Rhetoric is not, I don't want to hear your rhetoric that we hear from politicians. It's bigger than that. So the first appeal is ethos, which is an ethical appeal using allure, trust, and credibility. And to use ethos, I might tell you that my degree is in teaching of writing with an emphasis in rhetoric. I might tell you that I've taught in adult ed over 20 years, but it's not the same everywhere. I might tell my students that it took me 12 years to get a 4-year degree, or I might tell them about any of the other things in my life that led me to value education. So, it's important to remember that each of these things are not the same in every situation. So the next appeal is logos, which is an intellectual appeal that uses logic and reason. So I tell students that one of the most important things is recognizing ethos, pathos, and logos. I tell students that those persuasions are everywhere. Your work, your personal relationships, politicians, billboards, newspaper, and the internet. Okay, I have to do this because I'll get nervous and then freeze. But I also tell students the importance of making persuasive arguments, establishing credibility, and appealing to their audience. This is a valuable skill that will not only earn them their GED, but will also benefit them in getting and keeping a job. The final persuasion is pathos, and this is an emotional appeal to values and bonds. And I tell students that pathos in an argument is a strong argument, but without the other appeals of ethos and logos, it's just plain manipulative. I tell students that recognizing ethos, pathos, and logos helps us navigate the world, but let me tell you a story about a student I had a few years ago to help you understand the gravity of this persuasion. Once upon a time, there was a bright young man who had trouble making friends. Well, he found friends on the internet, and nobody uses the words, hey, let's go blow up something. They used words that made him welcome. They used words that made him feel like he belonged. And now he is sitting in a prison cell because those friends turned out to be terrorists. Remember, Maslow's need for belonging is strong, and belonging is a feeling. Of course, there are other pathos persuasions like the sad puppies, hungry and out in the snow that we see on TV. But I tell them also not to forget the funny, because if you don't learn this, you might end up in a van down by the river.
So now we're going to call on our final classic here, and we have Miss Kelly to do so.
Absolutely. And as I go into the explanation of this, real quick, show of hands, has anybody ever seen this graphic or a similar graphic to this one before? I'm seeing some nods. Let us know in the chat, also online. So this is one that some folks are familiar with, or at least some bit of it. I've seen it to where you only see one or two sections of it. I like this one because it has all four kind of different ways to go about approaching working with students. From some different vantage points, the reality of the situation on the left side, and we know this because enough of us have spent enough time on media, social media, et cetera, to where we know the reality that sometimes folks start off with a lot of resources at their disposal, so much so that they're able to not only reach their goals, but far surpass them. Where many of our students end up finding themselves in one of these other situations amongst the reality where they can maybe barely see over the proverbial fence of success, or maybe they have no idea where to even look. We have a few different models of how to address that issue. One being the idea of equality, and a lot of folks will get equality and equity confused with one another. Equality kind of more or less focuses on the starting line being as similar as possible. I like to think of this as kind of like a race, whereas in reality, there are folks who have already won the race before it's even begun. On the equality side, it's making sure that everybody has the same starting blocks for the race, the same resources as the race is beginning, but it's not really focusing on the idea of where they're trying to end up at the end, seeing over the fence, seeing their way into success. I love that there has been such a push for equity in our spaces on this third line because it has a better focus on the finish line of where our students are trying to get. And many of our students have different goals in life, but many of the students in our spaces do share similar goals, whether it is Illinois high school diploma completion or learning English as a second language in however way they need to see it. I love that equity focuses on the finish line and where our students need to end up so that we can adjust what those starting blocks look like. Liberation, obviously, would be the ultimate goal, and if somebody figures out how to have educational liberation, I would love to see you on, if Oprah comes out of retirement or something like that. Like, if you end up finding a way to find educational liberation, you are going to probably be rich and famous and make lots more money than any one of us in this room put together. I love that there's been such a big push for equity in our spaces and really focusing on those finish lines. And hopefully through the rest of our presentation this morning, we can come up with some really good concrete ways to keep some of the ideas that we have through that equity lens and making sure that all of our students have the opportunity to reach that finish line together.
And so we want to take these 4 classics. We each have shared a classic that we think is absolutely foundational to what we want to do in the classroom. We want to put them together and make a melody. We don't want to just have Bloom over here doing its thing, equity doing its thing over here. We want to bring them together where there is a melody playing in our classroom. So that brings us to the second part of our set list here, where we have the first thing that we're really trying to do is to bring together Maslow before Bloom. This phrase has really resonated with each of us. You might have heard of it before, that people can't Maslow until you've got a Maslow before you can Bloom. That you have to have your key components of your physiological, your social needs met before you can move on to have your higher learning skills refined. And so you can see here on the left side of the slide, we need to devote time to the bottom of this pyramid. Notice that the bottom is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so that we can then move on to the top of the pyramid. And you'll notice that we haven't necessarily replaced the top of the Maslow pyramid. You can see it's still there, esteem and self-actualization, like Miss Kathy has shown us. But we have implanted the Bloom's taxonomy on top of this. And so I had heard before this phrase that you got a Maslow before Bloom, but one huge portion of our session today that we wanted to do is show a visual and work out that visual of what does this look like to meet these basic fundamental needs first, and then work your way up, not just 2 pyramids now, but 2 pyramids coming together, kind of like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, if you will. So this is the idea that we have, but we also don't want to neglect the other classics like equity, like the rhetorical triangle that we want to bring together in making this melody. So with that in mind, I think Julie would like to share a few more pieces about that triangle.
Okay, I am going to use something from just half an hour ago. How many of you want more for your students than just to pass the GED? You want them to be successful in life. Okay, so one way I do this is with the ethos, pathos, logos. And I say ethos, pathos, logos all at once because it makes it easier to remember. Universal Design for Learning, which is UDL. I don't know, have any of you heard of UDL? Okay. Yeah, yay. Okay, it posits that all students may not need a particular framework, but all students will benefit. So if they don't need it, it's not going to disrupt them, but if they do need it, it helps them. So when you say ethos, pathos, logos with repetition, 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 students remember those words together. And the important part is that they understand the meaning and they'll recognize the words when they read them. And most importantly, they will create meaning in their lives. Hello, Mr. Bloom.
And that brings us to looking at equity differently here.
One issue that I have had as I spent too much time staring at the poster that explains reality, equality, equity, and liberation, was the idea of how big those boxes are. Like if I'm looking at that picture, I'm imagining a box that's up to my knees and just as wide. And I don't know about you, how many of you have joint pain? Back pain, knee pain, all these different kinds of pains that make this kind of heavy lifting very difficult. And that same kind of proverbial heavy lifting can be really overwhelming in the classroom. Last I checked, I do not have every resource at my disposal to solve every one of my students' issues as much as I would love to and as hard as I try. I cannot fix every single thing that's going on in my student's life. And it makes me lose sleep. And I bet for a lot of you, you can relate to that. Coming to terms with the fact that I cannot fix everything that's going on with a student's life is kind of one step toward that equity work. And one thing that's helped me kind of wrap my head around what equity is and what it can do and how I can, as an educator, and how we as educators can help students reach that equity is not imagining equity being these giant, unwieldy boxes, these huge steps, these things that seem so insurmountable. I've got a stack of paperwork 50 miles long in order to apply for this, thing that I need for this student, all those kinds of things. And those are important. But one thing that we tend to neglect is some of those smaller picture, nittier, grittier details that can help a student get through their day and get through your morning or your afternoon or your evening, whenever you decide. I always just mention morning because I'm usually in morning classes, but sometimes those smaller steps are ones that we take for granted, but they're the most easily implementable in our spaces and can have a bigger impact than what we give them credit for. Not every action that we take with our students has to completely shake the world. It might be something that's small, something that maybe something that other folks may take for granted, your student may appreciate beyond measure. So don't think of an idea as being too small and wipe it off to the side. One thing that helped me wrap my head around the idea of equity was shrinking the boxes that are way too heavy for me to carry all by myself. I like to think of them more as handholds. Small, medium, large, different sizes, different kinds of tools that can help students climb and find their way in multiple different directions. If one direction's not working, hey, I've got another resource that might help you work in this different direction. I may have something small to help you get you through your day. Not every change that we have to make is so unwieldy that we can't carry it. We can make smaller changes to be able to help our students out on the day-to-day.
So do us a favor and remember this rock wall analogy here because you'll need it later on, spoiler alert. So now we're halfway through our set list. Hopefully you're enjoying the show. But we are going to now take those classics that we're building a melody with. How do we get our students to learn in a way that we can now synchronize everything we're doing in the classroom to have a beautiful symphony of learning? How are we going to do it? Well, my spoiler alert is coming true right here. You can see that we have taken our classics and we're trying to synchronize them into this beautiful symphony of learning. And how do we do this? We have to give credit to Kelly here with her rock wall analogy. We were trying to put all these pieces together and having these two pyramids collide and having our rhetorical triangle here. How can we do all of these things that we find so critical for our learners? And we really got hooked on, pun intended, the rock wall analogy here, where each of those not gigantic boxes like Kelly was talking about, but those small things that we do on the day-to-day, those habitual things that we do in the classroom, how could those be footholds or handholds for our learners to climb these pyramids, to not only have their basic needs met in the classroom so that they can then get up to a sense of belonging, get to Bloom's taxonomy, to be able to infer from a text? How are they going to have food in their bellies so that they can actually use those critical thinking skills? So this is the idea behind our entire presentation, is how are we going to make this happen in our classrooms? And that brings us to our final of the set list. and we're really excited. If you went to IASA, we did this presentation of similar one at IASA back in March, but we made a critical blunder in March, in my opinion, and we were too front heavy in talking at you and being more sages on the stage as opposed to being guides on the side, or I kind of like being a sage on the side. But what we're going to do now is what we consider to be the most important part of this session, and we call it jazzing up the journey. So learning is a journey. Climbing this pyramid is a journey. So how are we going to go about this? We want to make it clear that, I'll just speak for myself, I'm not an expert. I know really well how to be a bad teacher. I think there are some experts in this room. I think each of you who has experience working with students, you know things that work and things that don't. And so we want to build together. We had planned this out to bring this session to Forum for Excellence, and we only found out after the fact that the mantra of the whole forum was better together, and it made us look really good, even though that was... we didn't plan it that way, but it seemed pretty cool that we're able to bring our team ideas, the things that we really want to value in the classroom, and bring them together. And we would love to learn from you as well. So one of the things that we want to do here this morning is we want to have an opportunity for us all to learn from each other, because we are, what's the Forum for Excellence slogan? I'm sorry, you're not loud enough. What is it? It's better together. Oh, no. Okay. Some of you are asleep. I've talked way too much. I get it. But we're going to try that one more time. What's the slogan or the mission of Forum for Excellence? Oh, isn't that great? Yes, it is better together. For those of you on Zoom who couldn't hear the loudness, it is better together. So that is what we're going to try to implement here. So what we're going to do is we have a Jamboard. And Kelly here will help us walk through the Jamboard here in just a minute. But there's going to be different slides of the Jamboard, and each slide is going to have a section of these two pyramids. You're going to recognize these different colors, these different images from this slide here. They are embedded in the Jamboard. And then you can go, if you're in person, we have the QR code right there that you can scan to access the Jamboard. If you're online, if you want to do it with your phone, if you're on your computer accessing this. If you don't have access that way, you can go to tinyurl.com/ how about this, build better together. That's pretty cool. And we're obviously going to leave this Jamboard up, and our hope is that each of us puts specific strategies that we do in the classroom. And if you know anything about being a teacher, one of the greatest things you can do as a teacher is steal great ideas from other people. And so if someone's doing it really well, I want to say, hey, how can I implement that in my classroom? Like I just stole a lot of really great things that Dave just shared with us earlier, a lot of those questions and how to frame conversations with our learners. So our hope is that if we put skills into this Jamboard, if you who are in person do it, if our participants on Zoom do it as well, that we will be able to learn together how to better serve our students. Okay, so we're going to show the Jamboard here in a minute. Does anybody have any questions about what we're asking of the session?
And actually, it'll probably help too. Once I get the Jamboard pulled up, I'll give a little demonstration, and we can kind of demonstrate too with the examples that we brought.
We're going to
as well.
give you some ideas.
Before we switch it over, does anybody in the room still need more time to either scan the QR code or plug the website into your devices? Raise your hand if you still need another moment. Also, if you're online, if you could give the moderator a W for wait if you need more time. But if you are ready online, go ahead and set our moderator the letter R for ready. That simple letter R is just a real quick 2 button clicks to let our moderator know that you are in fact ready to go. But if you do need another moment, please give them the W for wait. And I will wait until I get a thumbs up from our moderator that it's all right via the chat to switch over.
If you need to step forward to scan the QR code, you're welcome to do so. If you need help, and we'll be happy to wait on you as well. If you want to hand us your phone and we'll walk up here and scan it, whatever meets your needs the best. But take a minute, and like I said, if you don't know how to scan a QR code, you can just go to the tinyurl.com/buildbettertogether, all one word.
I'm getting the thumbs up from our moderator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switcheroo this screen over to that Jamboard. Actually, you know what? I don't need this. I've got this. So many microphone. I'm not used to having microphone options. It's amazing. I'm used to, like, if I don't stand in a particular spot in a room, like I'm waiting for the microphone to pick me up. This is awesome. All right. So let's see here. Let me turn off my PowerPoint sharing. Give me 1 second. And slideshow. And then I'm going to pull this up. Oh, that is super blank. Do I need to move that over to a different? Ah, that's amazing. It was amazing for a second. It was amazing until it wasn't. There we go.
Can the folks in
Hang
Zoom
on
see
one
that?
moment. I cannot
Awesome.
see where the mouse is. Where's the mouse? It's over here. Now we're going over here. All I got to do is maximize it. But bam! All right, we're in it. Wonderful. So we have some instructions within the Jamboard on the first page. And I'll walk you through those instructions real quick. So this is going to be where we go about sharing those ideas, like we had mentioned. I should probably speak into this microphone instead of away from it. The ideas that you share can be huge ideas. They can be small, little, everyday ideas and everything in between, but we really want to see those ideas that you have. So each one of these slides is going to focus on one of those rungs of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a moment. So as I make my way up, these caret keys at the top, both to the left and the right of the number of slides, will let you navigate back and forth. Notice I pressed that caret to the right, moves me to my next slide, and back and forth. To the left of that, we will find a sticky note. I slapped a picture of that on there, but the sticky note looks like this little guy right here. And what we're going to do is on each one of these slides, you are going to share your ideas for, and there's a few different categories just to help spur the conversation. But if you find something that's really helpful that you want to share that falls outside of these categories, please share it, because the more ideas that we leave this conference with, the better equipped we're going to be able to serve our students next week. So if you have ideas for how to meet the need that's on that slide, for how to teach about that need to your students, about the importance of the need, or maybe teaching about resources about the need or whatever. Ooh, something just dragged.
Somebody's pretty eager.
Oh,
it was you.
You know what?
Wow.
That's all right. You know what? I'm just gonna slide it on back. We're gonna
That's
pretend
the
that
good-
never happened. Not even
And
once.
you're
Not
totally
even
fine.
once did that happen.
That's why they have an undo button in
Boom.
Jamboard.
What
Yeah.
issue are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking
I
about.
just wish life had an undo button.
Also, if you have ideas on how to communicate to a student about how to meet their needs, or if you have ideas on how to ensure that equity is involved in that practice. And we want you to lather, rinse, repeat. We don't want to say, oh, you're only allowed to do one on the physiological needs and one on this. If you share, right, give us what you got. If you end up leaving here giving out a dozen ideas, you know what? You just benefited people a dozen times over. And I think that's wonderful.
And we're going to kind of prime the pump with some
Yeah.
help.
You bet. So what
we're
I'm going
gonna try
to do
to.
is I'm going to plop on over to my next frame here, and I'm going to scroll through them just so you're able to see what each one looks like. So each one of these slides is going to focus on a different need. Slide 2 has physiological, and notice that we have those handholds on there. We want to focus on that communication piece, getting our students to want to use resources and tools to be able to help them meet their needs. And as you scroll your way across, you're going to find all your other ones. Your safety needs. Ooh, and somebody's already sharing ideas. I'm so excited.
Oh, awesome.
Our need for belonging. And then as we make our way up, notice that we start to highlight our esteem needs and our self-actualization needs kind of alongside the pyramid for Bloom. We also have a slide for, I have no idea where to put this amazing idea, but I really want to share it. Holy cow, this is the best idea ever. And so I need to have somewhere to plop it. that is going to be your spot right there on slide 7. And then if you are one of our creative minds, instead of calling it the Maslow, Bloom, rhetoric, equity, giant monster pyramid, if you have a snazzy name and you have that kind of creative bone in your body, feel free to share your ideas on here, because whatever I just rattled off has way too many syllables. So let me give you an idea of something small that I implemented or that we had implemented in our classroom a little while back under physiological needs.
And we're also going to be modeling, if you've never used Jamboard before, how to create a sticky note and put it on the slide that you're wanting to work on.
Absolutely. So those carrots will be how you navigate back and forth in between. And there's a button over here to the left that looks like a picture of a sticky note. And whenever you pull it up, I think it'll default to whatever color. I'm going to switch it over to pink just because I'm feeling like it. How many of you have students who seem like they get a tattoo about every other week? I've seen a couple of hands raise up. One thing that we started doing in our classroom that you're like, is this physiological? Last I checked, your health is an important thing, and one way that you can show your students that you value their health. One thing I keep in my classroom for my students who do get tattoos, and last I checked, I get them too. I keep unscented white lotion in my classroom, and I have the kinds of soaps that they recommend. They're not very expensive. Dollar store has unscented white lotion and the antibacterial soap that you can use to keep your tattoos clean. I've seen students get infections from having bad tattoo work or not taking good care. And so showing them that you actually care about their healing, it's not a huge piece of their health, but it shows that you value their health. So I'm gonna just type into that sticky note, unscented white lotion for tattoos. Something that I've gotten really good response over, I've been able to have really good conversations with students about them, and it literally cost me $1. And it might not even cost you $1. You might be one of those folks who has like a million things of lotion just sitting around the house. You can also take those corners of the Post-it note, drag it around, make it bigger, smaller. You can rotate it, do all kinds of fun stuff with it. Does one of you want to share? Okay. Go ahead and feel free to come on up and share an idea. I can do the typing if you want to talk about it. Not a problem. It's a weird angle that we're at, but we'll make it happen.
And she's much better at this than I am. I've participated in Jamboards in your seats, but never while presenting. Mine's going to go on the belonging/safety, but we'll put it on belonging. Okay. One of the things that I do when we first start classes is I talk about math anxiety. You noticed at the beginning I'm mathy Kathy. So I teach the math, and a lot of our students suffer from math anxiety. In fact, it's a really common thing. One of the things I hear the most is when I say I'm a math teacher, is like, oh, I don't like math. And that's just out in the average world. I get it, double downed with my students. So one of the things I do is I go through some strategies to deal with math anxiety. So I can highlight some of those, but I just go through like a video that I have them watch, and we talk about some things, and one of those is the power of the word yet. So
yeah, and I think just having those conversations helps diffuse some of that anxiety from the word go.
Yeah. Can I do one more and then?
Please do.
Oh, come on, okay. It was my turn.
The other one kind of goes with again, belonging and safety.
Sometimes these will overlap. Yeah. We don't want people to get too caught up in the semantics.
Tell you what, I really like that last slide because it might belong on that one. One of the things I started doing was sending out a daily email. I see my students once a week at different locations. And so I sent out a daily email that had everything that we did. If I did a worksheet, it was on there. If I did a video, the link was in there. Our skills on IXL, whatever it was, I would put there. And then I would send it out to the students I used to send it out to everybody, but that became very work intensive. And then I would send it out to those who requested it. And now that has transpired into a website for our locations where they can go to the website and click on math, click on RLA, click on that topic, and then those lessons are right there. So that's actually helped me a lot because I don't have to type a bunch of emails, email addresses that I can't remember. So those are two things that I've done. And the reason why that helps is because that sets that expectation that they're going to practice math outside of class. And they have it gives everybody access to the lessons. If they want to go back, they don't have to note take so crazily in class. So that's one of my strategies. All right, who's next?
You know what? Let's go ahead and break off and go ahead and start filling this out. How long do you think would be a good amount of time to give?
I would say at least about 5 minutes if you want to start interjecting some ideas on there.
For sure. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and spend some time with that.
Yeah, in the meantime, Julie, did you have an idea?
Oh, yeah, let's go ahead and type it in.
Is it for esteem
On belonging?
or belonging?
It goes in both of them, but if you...
Let's put one on esteem because we don't have anything there yet.
So while we're sharing these, if you would like to engage with the Jamboard, please do so. We're going to give you a couple ideas, but then our hope is in about 5 minutes or so, we're going to start reading some of your entries. And then if you would like to elaborate on what you shared, if you're online, I don't know if you'd be able to speak out loud, but you could maybe elaborate a little bit more in the chat. Is that right, Kirsten? Yes, thank you very much. So if we choose to read yours off, you could elaborate more in the chat box, or if you're in person, we would love to pass the microphone around and then maybe get a discussion going on these, because it might be that not everybody goes and reads every single sticky note on the Jamboard, but if we get a conversation going, I think that's when we can knead the dough of learning pretty well. I'm sorry, Ms. Julie, I just stole your thunder here.
No, I'm really trying to type
You're writing
with,
letters. What do those
I know.
letters mean?
I know, and I don't even know. Oh, the class ROM. Okay. Maybe I should have you type this.
That's okay.
Maybe Kelly.
Fix it.
Okay, so how many people have done the Myers-Briggs personality test? Okay, so if you haven't, I have an email if you're interested, because this is like one of the single most important things that ever happened to me was this test. And I think that students, when we do it in class, everybody has a different personality, but there are similarities, and it just gives them points to talk about. Even the shyest students, which I was one of them once, will talk. So having them be able to, get acquainted with each other is important, and that whole belonging thing. And I think that, when I was in school, I never felt like I belonged there. And partly was because I didn't talk to anyone. So this is an excellent opportunity to get them talking.
And then I want to add one too here. If you don't mind putting this one, maybe on self-actualization to give an example of what that might look like in the classroom. Is that the next slide?
Give me one moment.
Yeah, you're fine. I know the mouse is not being user-friendly here. Something that we really try to do, I know I've mentioned teaching reading a lot here, is we have a really ugly poster in our classroom, and it's titled What Good Readers Do, and we kind of make it a thing in the classroom. Like, I'll give you an example. You're welcome to judge me if you like, but we recently had an air conditioner problem in one of our classrooms, and so we were displaced into another room, and instead of just putting the poster up on the wall in the other room, I turned it into a giant necklace. Think like Flavor Flav, how he wears a giant clock, for those who know who Flavor Flav is. He wears a giant clock, and I turned this poster into a giant necklace so that wherever I'm teaching, I can carry this poster with me in a very ridiculous way. We try to make it a thing. You just visualize me wearing a poster that goes down to my knees here.
It was gigantic. I'm not even going to front.
Yeah, in hindsight, I probably should have brought it for emphasis, but the point is to instill the importance. Once students have their physiological needs, their sense of belonging, we can then sharpen the skills needed to be successful. I specifically really focus on the college and career readiness standards. Our students take these CASAS goals tests, and they have these score reports that give them a percentage of how they did in reading, for instance, with things like higher order thinking skills, things like locating details in a text, main idea, being able to infer information from a text. That's when we try to help them become the most they can be as readers, as math students in the class. We want to reach that top of the pyramid as much as possible, have them be not only competent, but showing mastery in those college and career readiness standards. That's an example that we, our flavor lesson, literally we wear a poster. I do, not them. I don't know if anyone else would be as ridiculous as me in doing that. But that is one way that we, in a ridiculous fashion, show our students, model our students, literally wear our strategies to instill those college and career readiness standards. So that's just one example of something ridiculous and fun that we do in the classroom.
Sometimes we also wear them on our shirts.
Yes.
That's a really great, easy way to get conversations going with students about whatever the topic is of the day. This one felt very fitting for Building Better Together because it has lots of hands building the words kindness matters on it.
Yeah.
Sometimes wearing your lessons can really help them sink in. So go ahead and take just the next few minutes. We want to see as many Post-it notes as we can on this Jamboard.
And I already saw a lot in the beginning, like in the physiological needs slide. Mm-hmm. What we would like to do, again, is try to discuss some of these. And so if we choose yours, we would love to maybe have a little bit of a discussion on it. Kelly, do you mind maybe going, was that slide 2? Was that slide 3 there? There was one on there that I wanted to point out.
Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Which one? This way? Keep going?
A little bit more. The physiological needs. Oh, hold on.
There we go.
Woo!
Yeah, this one. This is what caught my eye. Maybe we should do, should we go in order? We probably should go in order. Sorry for being indecisive. Do you mind going to the physiological needs?
Bam.
So I see multiple times one of my favorite words here, the word snacks. No one else likes the word snacks? Okay, we got 2 people being, thank you, Kavan. We got 3 people who are honest here. So would anyone like to share what snacks look like for you in your classroom, in your learning space? Maybe that was somebody online who would like to elaborate online. Kavan, I saw your hand go up.
Well, we have, sorry. Well, we have multiple, we have a snack pantry that we have for our students. So, sorry. We have a snack pantry that we have for our students, so they're able to get snacks throughout the day. And we also have snacks in our classrooms where while we're teaching or when you just come into our classroom to sit down and talk to us, to meet with us, we have snacks, we have candy for you to say something positive or just have something that you're able to enjoy while you're there learning. So it's kind of 2 different ways.
Anybody else?
Yeah, thank you. Did I see a hand up over here? Someone else who wanted to share maybe something similar to what Kavan said? You certainly don't have to, but we want to give you the space if that's something that would, you feel like, help other programs with their learning. And for the record, you might be able to see on the Jamboard an idea that we're not sharing out loud and you would like to share it yourself. Please feel free to raise your hand and say, hey, I saw this idea on here and I just want to give props on it and say that's really great. So feel free to do that if you would like. Our hope for this last 10 to 15 minutes is to get a discussion going here. Yeah, so I see another word on here like lack of appropriate clothing for weather, for instance. So does anybody want to discuss that as far as like a program need and maybe share some ideas? Maybe your program has an idea to meet that need and there's another program who has that need that you could really share some light on. I saw your hand go up. And if you don't mind just sharing what your name is.
Sure, my name is Dayram Sheehan, and I have done a lot of work with ESL students. So oftentimes people coming from different countries don't realize how cold it can get here in Illinois, and all of a sudden they're showing up without a jacket. So last year I went to a McKinney-Vento presentation. and didn't realize that some of those funds are also available for college age students. So there are resources in the area. Oftentimes also places like churches or nonprofits can provide jackets or mittens, gloves. And I think it's one of those things we don't always realize, that when people are brand new, they may not have appropriate clothing.
Hi, my name is Stephen Tariff. I'm with the City Colleges of Chicago, and each of our campuses have food pantries, clothing closets, and wellness centers to help sort of provide the basic needs for our students physically and emotionally and mentally.
Thank you very much. Well, if you touch the microphone, I think you have to speak. You want to? I think that's. No, there's no coercion going on here. This is the idea, though, to try to get a discussion going. Maybe another program has an idea that you haven't considered, like reaching out to community groups like churches, other organizations that might be able to meet your needs. I don't want to spend the whole time on physiological unless that's something that's needed. Maybe we could go on to another slide and maybe talk about ideas with respect to safety or belonging, because I know that time is running short.
One other piece on here that I thought was really helpful was somebody had posted making sure that community resources. I know a lot of our counties, a lot of our townships will have like resource guides that they post. Making those accessible to students is invaluable.
Yeah, because sometimes...
And to yourselves, because you'll drive yourself nuts trying to find
It's
resources.
one of the things that I put on our door is the list of community resources.
Yeah, and so one person here, as far as safety goes, put mechanical pencils and a pack of blue book notebooks each year for students who might have lost or forgotten theirs. Absolutely. Like, if you have kids, whether you have kids or not, school supplies are expensive nowadays. And our learners might not have that additional resources to be able to spend on these classroom supplies. And so definitely, like, as far as financial security goes, you don't want your students to feel like they're at a disadvantage compared to other learners who are in the same classroom. Ooh, right while I was talking, more have popped up. That's really cool. Thank you, Anonymous Chicken. I really appreciate, or is that Anonymous Duck? I can't tell. Turducken. So tell them every day you hope they are safe when they leave. Ooh. So well wishes. Anybody want to elaborate on that? If you want to, by all means, don't feel the
I used to have a teacher that I ran into a couple of weeks ago that I hadn't seen in 20 years. And he used to tell us every single day as we were leaving on a Friday to move on with our day, not to do anything illegal, immoral, or just plain stupid. And I saw him literally 2 weeks ago, and I told him, I was like, I remember that about being in your class. And like, I've adjusted how I tell that messaging to our students.
Repetition.
Right, absolutely. And for me personally, part of that is asking them to have a fun and safe weekend, because we know that some of our students can get mixed up in some unsafe behaviors sometimes. And so maybe even just hearing that someone wants them to have a safe time can really help turn that conversation around. So I really appreciate that being put on there.
You want to move to belonging and see if we have any good ideas there?
One thing
Oh,
that I
please do,
popped
Miss
into my
Kathy.
head.
Sure.
One of the things, and I need to get this training that our program has recently done, is just put Narcan everywhere. There's access to it, so if we need it really quickly, and it's so new to me anyway that I need to get the training for it, and that's become available to us as well. So that's something else as far as safety.
Yeah.
And a lot of places you can get it for free. I know in our county, we're able to get free resources for Narcan. All we got to do is ask.
Yeah, and training is free as well. Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a look at belonging. We have just a little bit longer than 5 minutes here, and feel free if you would like to share as well. I know the mouse is... It's like
I'm just working on. Oh, sorry.
It's like
I have it open twice so that I can see what I'm typing and don't kill my neck.
Yeah, and so we've got one here. Tell each student they worked hard that day when they leave. When possible, I make it more specific, like you really asked good questions today. I love the positivity there. I don't want to assume things about our learners, but I think a lot of them have had really poor or negative learning experiences in the past. When they come into our classroom, I love the positivity here. And I think, Julie, you've walked up here.
I
You're
just
ready to
saw
comment.
point out ways which students belong and things they have in common, especially with the teacher. Everybody who knows me, I'll talk about the time I slept in the front seat of my pickup truck. I mean, because if you've ever, not had a place to live, or, it's just whenever students feel like, oh man, you're a real person, I think that's where you have the connection and they will come back.
Another ridiculous thing we do is every day we share what the national day is for that day. Like today is National New York City Day, which mad props for making New York style pizza. Anybody? Yeah, New York style pizza. Okay, we're closer to Chicago. I can totally get it if you're a Chicago pie person. I totally get it. But it's New York City Day. So, and the Giants play on Thursday Night Football tonight. So how about that? That's pretty cool. All right. I know we only have a couple more minutes. You want to move over? Did we get anything in self-esteem or self-actualization? Do we have any nuggets that we want to share there?
I like this one. Someone had posted, I remind the students that I'm not teaching them anything they don't already know. I'm just reframing it in a way that will help them pass the GED test. Absolutely. And I love how empowering this statement is, and bringing these kinds of empowering statements into your classroom space can really boost a student's self-esteem, realizing that they know more than they give themselves credit for. We also have that beautiful MBTI test that Miss Julie shared.
And also, have you ever heard that you can't know anyone else until you know yourself? I think that being able to know how you are in your personality and your preferences helps you understand when people are different. And that is totally, self-actualization and growth that we all can get along, right?
For sure. I'm not seeing anything new under self-actualization. Seriously, Flava lesson. If you have a poster that goes along with what you're trying to teach, if you wear it, all of a sudden it's going to be super memorable.
Yeah. I mean, you are welcome to steal that idea because I stole it from Flavor Flav. If you don't know who Flavor Flav is, you could do a quick Google search and he wears a giant clock. So I might have gotten my inspiration from him. You're welcome to judge me. It's quite all right.
I heard a big gasp over here.
Hang on one second. I saw somebody post something I got really excited about. I got to switch it over real quick. Oh, I just realized I didn't switch that. There we go. And this one, the secret to a perfect high five. I love teaching students how to give good kudos to people. The proper high five, if you ever want to find out, is to look at the person's elbow. So come here, Miss Kathy. Just look at my elbow. Don't look at anything else but my elbow. All of a sudden, you're able to give a really crisp, nice high five and give that nonverbal communication that you're wanting to give. Also, I've had students really get excited whenever you teach them how to give a proper handshake. Instead of the old dead fish or the crush of the hand, showing them how to have some awesome, really positive interactions with one another can be an awesome way to help them learn how to communicate. We also had a post on here. This is something our college does. I don't know who posted that, but we offer a time once a month where our students have a safe place, a safe space in order to share their ideas on how to make the classroom better. It really opens up the floor to student voice and lets them know that they are valued.
And we keep a Google form open 24/7 for students to be able to anonymously share their feedback, which we do then read, and that helps kind of inspire our conversations when we have that once a month Your Voice Matters Monday, and we feed the students. So the snacks, it's a model of trying to do the Maslow before Bloom. Before you're thinking about how to make our program better, eating a piece of pizza really helps. So that's something that we try to model here to try to get up this pyramid to Maslow before we can bloom. We've got about a minute left. I want to be respectful of your time because I know that you need to go to the restroom during the break. Does anybody have a final comment, question, concern, thing that you can hang around your neck like Flavor Flav, anything?
Just the one big key takeaway from today that we want to make sure that everybody has is that not everything that you have to do in the classroom has to shake the earth and completely change the world. Sometimes just having those little bitty pieces can make all the difference in our students' days.
Okay, my favorite thing to do when class is over with is tell me what you would tell someone else about this experience.
So be thinking about that. It is 11:50 here. We want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for participating. We would love to talk with you further. If you want to come up, we won't bite. We'd love to have a conversation with you. But if you want to go get your 5th cup of coffee like me and run to the restroom, then feel free to do so. We hope you enjoy the rest of your forum. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all for giving us an enjoyable first breakout session. We really appreciate it.